Hi guys, I'm starting early for two reasons. Number one, the problems we have with Facebook, and number two, my neighbor Tenzin Shurab in Lavinia, have no power, so we may have a power outage here. I don't know. It never ends. So relax. We'll start at 7 o'clock, which is a minute and 10 seconds. Cheers. Salute. Big Newton. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, and this is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. And this is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, the LAM Chenmo of Tsong-kha-pa. All the prayers we say are on the website. We are under the direction of Chabje Ling Rinpoche, His Eminence Chabje Ling Rinpoche, and also under the direction of Rato Kensa Thupten Lunda, also known as Venerable Geshe Nikki Vreeland. Any problem with the picture or the sound or whatever, let me or Mr. Smith know right away. Text me, because the phone will knock me offline. Somehow my iPhone and the iPad, the Mac, got married somewhere. I don't know what they did. But anyway, they knock each other out. If there's anyone for whom you want us to pray for who has passed away in the recent past, put their names in the chat box as soon as you can. And happy holidays. It's not a happy holiday, it's a Memorial Day, but let's do our best. Anyway, I'll give you the tag for the class after we say the prayers. In other words, what we're going to file this under when we archive it. And a preview. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the Victorious One's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms, which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, mahasattva, should learn profound, transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. The refuge and Bodhisattva vow, which we recite 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjughosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. And now, as a cause for the quick return of Radhachandra Rinpoche, we recite His Holiness' prayer, a prayer for a swift return. You'll find it with the other prayers on the Tibet Center website. In the FAQ section, scroll down to prayers. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tubuang Doje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Losang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed, great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end, to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Losang Tenpe. magnificent truth of the three precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, Sri Mata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. So tonight we'll tag this thing with, first of all, the main body of it. It is the Lam Rim Chenmo. We're in the inside section, volume 3, chapter 15, picking up where we left off last Monday night, as a matter of fact, because Wednesday night we did Rato Chungla's biography. Tonight we have an interesting mix. The first part will be this instructions on practical Buddhism, and that's the name of the book. Written by Ken Lieberman, a sociology professor emeritus at Oregon State University. He's also the author of the Panchen Lama's dialogue between wisdom and the reifying ignorance, the reifying attitude, whatever you call it. I forgot the exact title. He's also a author of a very scholarly book on debate. He taught himself the Tibetan language. He lived in Sera Monastery for 5 years. He got down on the ground to write this book. He's original follower of Lama Yeshe, Lama Tupten, Lashindanya, Amges, Lama Zokpa, and all the other lamas that he mentioned. It's a wonderful book. Maybe we'll read other chapters from here. It's introduced by Venerable Tupten Children, who has known him since the early days, on and off. He's had 5 open heart surgeries and still surfs. Tough guy. Anyway, I'll read a little first from his introduction. The book's title is Practical Buddhism, Living Everyday Life. And it's really down to earth, and it's like friends talking over coffee. By the way, he's a coffee guy. He even wrote I think he has a video out and a book, Tasting Coffee, it's called. From the introduction, when a person comes upon 2 dogs that are about to commence in a fight in some street or alleyway, it's natural to attempt to bring the confrontation to a conclusion by shouting at the dogs and chasing them away. We all have done that. Although the human who interferes in these canine affairs has little appreciation of the vital dog issues that have lent importance to the struggle, it is for certain that the human discounts them and does not consider them so critical that a fight about them is necessary. How do we learn to take the same perspective regarding our own affairs, so that we recognize that most of the conflicts that keep looming before us are unnecessary? Many of the practices of Buddhism are designed to give us that kind of perspective upon our own affairs. Instead of our lending exaggerated importance to whatever it is we are immediately caught up with, one who, quote, practices Buddhism learns to step back and always read events in the perspective of a broader recognition of what is really important. Rinpoche used to say, in the long run. So, such a person can achieve some reconciliation with one's own being as one lives daily in one's everyday life. It is not so hard a thing to accomplish that ordinary people cannot have some success at it. We're not talking about high yogis or anything. We're talking about ordinary people. One does not have to meditate, but it helps. And of course, one of the better known practices of Buddhism is meditation. However, there is a good deal of a misunderstanding about it. As a colleague of mine from Sera Monastery, Geshe Tupten Tashi, once explained to me decades ago, one does not meditate so that one can experience some kind of nice. It is important to meditate so that one can successfully transform one's limited perspective in an enduring way, so that we naturally and habitually will act in accord with the Dharma most of the times. It is not important to meditate so that one can become accomplished the next time one visits a Dharma center, and it is not important to meditate so that one's partner is impressed by one's spiritual growth. You're kidding. I mean, really, you're kidding. It's my head. It is important to meditate so that we learn to consider our own conflicts as unnecessary as are the conflicts of quarreling dogs, so that it becomes more difficult for us to get angry, and so that we are more able to contribute harmony everywhere we travel to the benefit of each person we meet. This happens when we keep acting from a place of contentment. That is our primary responsibility, and it is the main reason why we meditate. I am frequently asked, I'm on page 15, Roman numeral 15 of the introduction. I am frequently asked, what is meditation? I reply that there are many kinds and many levels of meditation, but that job one is to accept the responsibility for one's own happiness. And if one is unable to do that, at least one should make an effort to develop a capacity to not inflict one's unhappiness or emotional afflictions upon others. You hear it? Russia, are you listening? Never mind. Above all, one should not blame anyone for one's unhappiness, since finding a way to be content is exclusively a personal responsibility. At least once each day, it is beneficial to check in with home, in other words, quote home, as it were, in other words, what's going on in my mind, and reconnect with one's own contentment. Comes from you. So that at a minimum, one does not keep going around disturbing others like a hungry ghost. So I'll shift now to a chapter 15, rather than read the whole introduction. And this is how he puts these things into daily life. He's very, very astute, very frank. Well, you'll judge for yourself. Excuse me. It has long been my wish to overcome what the Tibetans call the emotional afflictions that influence my behavior. But by the time I reached the age of 60, I more or less concluded that I was not going to be able to overcome them in any comprehensive way. So what does he do? He gives up? No. Nevertheless, he says, it is part of the wisdom of old age to accept oneself even when others may not. Otherwise, no peace will ever reward one's life, and progress can take place only when there is some peace stabilized in one's heart. So you need this contentment, you need this stabilized peace to make spiritual progress. And we got to get ourselves. It's not going to come in a product or whatever. In recent years, I've set my sights lower, and now my principal daily aspiration is to prevent myself from inflicting any of my neuroses upon others. Very sweet, very kind heart. This is an effective practice of Dharma. Don't knock this. Here he goes, explains it. That conjoins both method and wisdom in one path. Resolving not to let the slightest dust particle from one's own neuroses fall upon the mental continuity of another person is a fine gift to offer to the world. We have emotional afflictions, including neurotic obsessions, and restraining ourselves from laying them upon others is the next best thing to removing them. This is the minimum goal for which any spiritual aspirant should strive. So it's important, I'm editorializing now, in the Dharma centers. People complain about their health, their this, their that. Nowhere does your health improve by complaining about it. Nowhere. Except you're talking to a doctor, explaining symptoms. Otherwise, on and on, or this, or that, tonight, I didn't sleep last night. Yeah, we all have those problems. We're in samsara. So try to restrain yourself in that area, if you can. And a lot of benefit accrues, because it acknowledges the reality of others and the sanctity of others. We're all important. Joy and happiness, he continues on page 77 of this book, Practical Buddhism. Joy and happiness can come later, but at least we can resolve to not bring unhappiness to anyone else. That much we owe the world. Of the two kinds of spiritual practitioners, those who practice for themselves and those who practice for the sake of others, this one is for the sake of others practice, which makes it a superior practice, which makes it Mahayana. Since it is very practical, a sort of mind improvement, Lojong exercise, it falls within the method side of Buddhism. However, in order to succeed, it is necessary also to diminish one's sense of self-importance. Having a firm sense of the lack of an inherent reality to the personal identity that one has constructed for oneself contributes to one's willingness to surrender the sort of headstrong self-absorption that often accompanies inflicting our obsessions upon others. Here's a big point why we're studying emptiness. This identity, this solid I that we come when meditating like this, and I don't like that. That's not there. Not there. That's created by us. It's imputed, if you want. It's a nomination, as Rinpoche said. Mere nomination, that's all. Of course, it's hard to get rid of that. But it helps to study the fact logically that things aren't inherent existence, I don't inherently exist, blah, 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 on and on. Slowly that seeps down and starts to inform your mind stream, your moment by moment mind stream. That's the way out. And that's the way to help others. So he continues now on page 78. Undermining the sense of the reality of our ego identity is a, quote, wisdom practice. And one really needs to work both sides of the street, method and wisdom, if one is going to succeed in keeping one's own negative energies from contaminating others. So that's the least we can do. Some people regard like the gatherings of the Buddhist centers as a place to just lay it out, air your dirty laundry, rant. Go to a bar and do that. Or the bartender can tell you to shut up. I don't know, do what you have to do, but we all do it. So let's be kind to ourselves and just try to suppress that. Anyway, he's very humorous, by the way, in a lot of the ways he puts things. He's been around, he's lived. Take, for instance, not becoming angry when one is frustrated. This can be a problem for me because I enter the world with enough enthusiasm to quickly become obsessed with my projects, and so I am unable to suffer hindrances well. I have little patience, and my impatience can lead me to brief fits of explosive energy that damage the mind stream of others. Even when I am aware of what is happening, I am unable to keep a lid on it, sometimes with unfortunate results. Well, it's always unfortunate results, at least immediately in the long run. Pardon me? I admire his honesty and I admire his candor. He continues on page 78. I remember one occasion, this you like. In the spring of 1984, when the Ganden Tripa, the highest Lama of the Gelugpa order, Ganden Tipa, I think you pronounce it, of the Gelugpa order, came to the U.S. to teach a great text by Tsong-kha-pa that he had been trying to study for some time. The text was the essence of well-spoken explanation, the Legshe Nyingpo. He had asked, I think His Holiness Ling Rinpoche, who could I study Legshe Nyingpo with? This is my aside now. And they recommended Rato Chungla Rinpoche. So Nikki was there and he made, arrangements, I'll come. And then all of a sudden Nikki said, well, he disappeared. We don't know. I said, well, Mickey didn't know, but he went through several open heart surgeries. He has a congenital heart condition. 5 of them, to be exact. So that's what happened. So he never got that teaching from Chungla Rinpoche. Legshe Nyingpo, a text that summarized the views of emptiness of the various schools of Buddhist tenets. I was living in Eugene, Oregon at the time, and the Ganden Tipa was to give these special teachings in Los Angeles, nearly 1,000 miles away. Fortunately, the teachings were scheduled for the spring break of my university, and they were to commence on the morning of Saturday following my last lecture, the preceding Thursday, which left me only Friday for the long drive. I think it's about 1,000 miles. I made the journey in my car, stayed with a friend, and showed up barely on time as the Ganden Tipa walked into a suburban home in Los Angeles West Side, a mile from where I grew up. He grew up in Beverly Hills or Hollywood. Grew up fairly affluent. Most of the students on the living room floor looked like me, tanned, fit, jeaned, and t-shirted in the understated but affluent West Side way. I think it's called West Mountain. The truth of suffering was far from our experience or, given our youth, even our understanding. The Ganden Tipa gazed at us with no small amount of wonder, and he could probably sense the lack of discipline in us. He was silent for many minutes as he studied us. I looked about to observe what he was studying, and I saw at once that we must seem to him people who had just taken our privilege for granted, just as residents of the God realms do. There we sat, the tanned and beautiful people, infatuated with our own beauty. The High Lamas may not really be omniscient, but it would have required something less than omniscience to have recognized our self-absorption. It was that glaring. In fact, he continues, self-absorption may be the social trait that best characterizes the residents of my homeland, Southern California. After some 10 minutes, the Ganden announced that he did not think it was suitable to be teaching us Tsong-kha-pa's essence of eloquent explanations. And instead he launched into many days of descriptions of the hell realms from the graduated path, the LAM teachings that I had heard too many times before. My spring break was destroyed. All of my considerable efforts and expense were arranged without results, and I was sorely disappointed. The living room was unable to contain my frustration. As the lecture on the hell realms continued, my frustration grew into anger, leaving me powerless. Perhaps throwing my own ugliness into my face was the teaching that I most needed at that time. I cannot say. But I did recognize at once that I did not have the capacity to control my growing anger at the Ganden Tippa, the throne holder of the Gelug sect of Tibetan Buddhists. I considered the other attendees, locals whose interest in the essence of well-spoken explanations was perhaps not as great as mine, and who might benefit from the Ganden Tippa's talks. I did not want to disrupt their opportunity by inflicting my afflicted emotions upon them. So I went out to my car and drove back to Eugene that same day, channeling all my agitated energy onto the freeway driving. My Dharma gift to my fellow seekers was to remove my sorry ass from the mind space of that Los Angeles living room filled with young Dharma students, who is taking one for the team, more or less. He continues on page 80. Reflecting on matters as I made the 2-day return drive home, I thought it was a good thing to be able to recognize when my energy has lost the capacity to make any contribution. I resolved to become more aware of my energy this way in the future. But resolve by itself is capable of achieving little. All of our good ideas and all of our resolutions to be good have no more effect than a smoker's New Year's resolution. It's a good idea, but not yet an actual practice. Little is to be gained from resolution that is not accompanied by some habituation with the virtuous actions and mind streams that one aspires to. Habituation is another word for meditation. The energy flows of a smoker have already been fully integrated with his or her life practices, and change can come only with rehabituation, not with ideas. Cultivating virtuous energy streams is a very slow practice, whose results are measured not in weeks but decades. In fact, many Tibetans would say not in decades, but in lifetimes. So we should bear that in mind. My aside here. He continues. This is really the great wisdom of the Tibetan method of Buddhist practice. This, quote, rehabituation is frequently mislabeled as meditation. Cultivation is also a felicitous translation. He's splitting hairs, but anyway. My friends and I usually reify meditation as a sort of add-on thing, which we can choose to do at certain times and not do at other times. It is even sometimes restricted to a place, but it is really something that happens inside out, not outside in. And the practice has more to do with results than with any physical act, like sitting. The real point is to reform the systems of energy that flow habitually through one's own mental stream. Quote, the mind here being the heart, so that one no longer has a choice regarding acting with or without virtue. One just does it naturally, habitually. That's the training. You're trained so it becomes you. Transformation. He continues, bottom paragraph of page 80. This is partly why philosophical studies do not always afford a complete means for taming the mind. My Western teachers were brilliant, but many of them are untamed, which drove me to Buddhist practice. One must reform the autonomic nervous system and be gentle, kind, and caring. Good ideas can help a lot, but they need to be deposited and cultivated in the chakras at one's heart and navel. He's obviously well schooled in Tantra, well schooled. He's bringing it all together. Continues on page 81. Take, for instance, one of my teachers at Sarah, Geshe Tempa Chopel. As he once explained to me, there are 5 stanzas of Geshe. Geshes. He used his hand to describe the thumb as the best quality Geshe, followed by the index finger and the middle finger and the ring fingers. He pointed to his little finger and explained that he was the lowest class of Geshe. What utterly sincere humility. In his mid-60s, he had had a stroke and lost much of his memory of the text and even some mantras. He even forgot the faces of many of his students, including myself. But he had meditated for so many years and had engaged in taming his mind over so many decades that after his stroke, his gentleness, kindness, and concern for others had not abated in the slightest. I compare that to the stroke of one of my uncles, which rendered him easily irritated, even against his wishes. Many of the ideas had vanished in Geshe Tempa Chofel's mind, but the tamed habituation of his deeper physical energies was still in force after the stroke. He was an accomplished Lama despite his self-assessment. When I visit him, I am always overjoyed to witness his enduring achievement, something that I aspire to if all my ideas can stop getting in the way. Very, very deep understanding of the mind here and of the component, the energy component and the consciousness component together. Very deep understanding. He's saying it smoothly, etc., but there's depth here. I mean, I really... Anyway, let me stop praising the guy and let you hear more of it. Mid to the bottom, page 81. My resolve during the drive back in 1984 had little effect upon me at the time, and I continued to burden others with my impatience. Some skill and means did begin to show itself 25 years following that resolution. It was the rush, when I came so close to dying that I was afforded an opportunity to let go entirely. He's talking about his heart conditions, emergency rush to the hospital, etc. Since then, there have been some days during which my reprogramming is successful. For the numerous times I still fail, I carry a spare book in order to pull my negative energy out of the environs. I recognize that using a book this way is a thin substitute for patience, but it is effective as skillful means. Just carrying it sometimes reminds me of my commitment. So the point of my practice is this. Never mind trying to purify my garbage. Just let me prevent it from polluting others' minds. After all, they have enough of their own mental contamination to contend with without adding to their task. That daily aspiration is my minimum responsibility as a human being. That's a great responsibility, in my opinion. Bless his heart. Anyway, if you're interested, Practical Buddhism, Professor Kenneth Lieberman, forwarded by Thupten Chodron, bless her heart too. You can get it from the Namse Bangso bookstore. Where's that? That's the bookstore associated with the Kargu Monastery in Woodstock, New York. Karma Triyana Dharma Chakra. They have it. It's $22. They'll mail it to you. Or I guess Amazon has it. It's published by Motilal Bansidas in India. It is published in India. All right. Back to work. What time do we have? Come on, watch. Tell me. Okay. We left off with last Monday night with this on the verge of a quote by Tsong-kha-pa. And we're talking about production is not negated by the 4 extremes, not from self, not from other, not from both, not from no cause. But things are still produced. What's going on? Inherent production. That's all. Have to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Sorry to belabor the point, but I assume everybody's as dull as me. Maybe some of you are real sharp, but probably are. Anyway, this is Geshe Sopa's commentary. We're continuing, and he's commentating on chapter 15 in the LAM Rim 3. And now his quote, Tsong-kha-pa explains, in the context of arising from others, others does not mean mere others, it means inherently existent others. That's the way they present. Not from self, not from others. In that statement, those who are barking that out are assuming inherent self, inherent others. As we say 10,000 times, if there is inherent existence, there can't be cause and effect. Because inherent existence applies something setting itself up, sitting there in a static position, and that's that. But dependency, it's a product, it was caused, so it becomes a cause. Things flow. That's how reality goes. So Tsong-kha-pa says, in the context of rising from others, does not mean mere others, it means inherently existent others. What does the note say? I'm sorry to disrupt your mind stream with the note, but the notes sometimes are important. Oh, it's from clarification of the intention, illuminating the thought. I think they call it, illuminating the intent. There's so many translations of that. I use the old ones. Illuminating the intent. Maybe we'll bring that out someday. Is that what he said? No, it's not from that. Yeah, it is. Page 162. He's quoting a 1988 edition. The new edition is not 1988, so I don't know what page it's on. Anyway, enough. A little aside for the Buddhist scholars in our midst. Where are they? Charge them. Let me check the time. Okay. This means that arising from others refers to an inherently existent other result arising from an inherently existent other causes. This is page 217 of Geshe Sopa's chapter 9. Therefore, the Prasangikas say that even production from others is conventionally non-existent. Yeah, inherent existence doesn't exist conventionally. That doesn't exist at all. Right, I'll be quiet. Moreover, mere production means to arise in dependence on causes and conditions. This kind of dependent arising used as a reason refutes production from the four alternatives that follows. It disproves arising from self, and it disproves the arising from inherently existent other causes, so it refutes the arising of both of these together. And since it explicitly indicates arising in dependence on causes and conditions, it refutes the arising without a cause. Chandrakirti's Introduction to the Middle Way says, because things dependently arise, these notions cannot bear analysis. Thus all nets of wrong views are severed by this reason, dependent arising. The king of reasons, on and on. Geshe Sopa continues, page 217. Fishermen use nets to catch fish. Similarly, wrong views entrap sentient beings. The logical reason of dependent arising cuts through all the nets of wrong views. Dependent arising itself is the reason that things are not inherently existent. Dependent arising itself is the reason that things are not inherently existent. A shorthand you can memorize, walk around with. Using this reason, you can prove that all things are not inherently existent and thereby conquer the ignorance that is the root of all mental afflictions. How's that for a reward? Okay? Therefore, dependent arising is called the king of reasons. How about the queen of the king of reasons? Shunyata, the emptiness of inherent existence, can be proved in various ways, but dependent arising is the most powerful proof of all. It alone cuts through the two extremes of nihilism and eternalism. Here's a key one, pay attention. The term dependent eliminates anything that exists inherently, by its own nature, or without a cause, automatically. Dependent? Okay, that implies doesn't exist inherently, doesn't exist causally because it exists dependently. Okay. The term arising shows that things exist and are not completely nothing. Dependent arising. Dalai Lama said, that's Buddhist slogans. That's the Buddhist slogan? I don't know. Anyway, let me be quiet. Tsong-kha-pa now addresses his opponent, Geshe Sopa goes on, and he quotes, although Chandrakirti explains that dependent arising negates production from the four alternatives, you think that if something does not arise from one of the four alternatives, alternative means of production, then there is no mere production at all. You overdid it. They're talking about inherent existence and there's no such thing, and they make these statements. So that means there's no production at all. Yeah, well, how did things get here? And you can obviously see things being produced. You have to step back and clear your mind and say, wait a minute. You seem to be saying the opposite of what Chandrakirti says. Again, he quotes from the Introduction to the Middle Way to point out the contradiction between his opponent's positions and Chandrakirti's view. Because things, here's the quote from Chandrakirti, because things do not arise without a cause from others, such as Ishvara, a divine creator, in other words, or from themselves or both, they are produced dependently. You conclude that because you see things being produced. So how they get here? Oh, must be dependent on everything. Okay, so then they can't be inherent existence. Things depend. Things are in flux. We just freeze it to make it easy for us to think about stuff, and that's not what's really going on. Is there anything that's not in motion, that's not in flux? Mental constructs like, what is it? Unimpeded space, the things like that. We'll get to that. It's going to be discussed. There's a thick chapter in Geshe Sopa's book. Page 218. Chandrakirti says that because things dependently arise, they do not arise from the four ultimate means of production. See, you got to really see the key words being thrown around here. The adjectives mean a lot. Ultimate means of production. In contrast, opponents say that if something arises, it must be from one of the four alternative means of production. Again, shut up, you're wrong. The Samkhya's believe in a universal principle cause, which a lot of people thought Aristotle's prime mover, a creative deity or something. Samkhya's believe in a universal principle cause, which is invisible, absolute, permanent, partless, and produces all things. Well, if it's permanent, how can it produce things? Because permanent means no action at all. And here you are producing. Wait a minute. You got to think that way. I don't, but you got to think that way. Thus, they believe that things arise from their own nature and are thereby self-producing. I like to self-produce millions of dollars. Anyway, the lower Buddhist schools believe that things arise from inherently existent other causes that produce inherently existent other results. They don't come out and blast it, but that's what they think. The Jains, a non-Buddhist sect, they follow Mahavira, I think. The Jains assert that things arise from both themselves and other causes. But Prasangikas, here we go, show off. Prasangikas assert that produced things do not arise from any of these putative causes. Instead, they arise dependently on causes and conditions. Dependently arising things are free of the extremes, since they are free of the four extremes of production. Therefore, one should not ask, from which of these four extremes do they arise? The problem underlying such a question is an inability to distinguish between not arising inherently and not arising in general. Same problem. These are words, we have to understand them, and then we have to inculcate them, because going over them, even come to a conclusion, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now let it make sense deep down in our minds so that we change and we don't suffer. And then we can really help others, be of use. Well then, the opponent asks, yeah, well then. How do you explain the statement of Chandrakirti? Whatever argument is used in the context of ultimate analysis to negate production from self and others, that argument negates it even conventionally. So there. And the reply. On the surface, it looks as if Chandrakirti is saying that the same logical analysis that negates ultimate production also negates the conventional arising. It also negates conventional arising from causes and conditions. In other words, if things do not arise from one of the four alternative ways of arising, then things cannot arise conventionally. This is not, repeat, this is not a correct interpretation of this passage. This stanza, actually means that logical analysis of ultimate reality can prove that inherently existent production that exists by way of its own characteristics, does not exist even conventionally. Because that's an imagined point of view. There's nothing in reality that sets itself up and is inherently existent. Nothing. Niente. However, that logical analysis does not negate mere production or production in general. Remember the word mere all the time, because you're going to hear it all the time. I mean, I'm told it's Tsam, T-S-A-M in Tibetan. I don't know the Tibetan alphabet spelling of, but anyway, it's a big word. It carries a lot. It's only 4 letters, but it carries a lot of meaning, and the argument turns on that word. This is shown in the linking commentary. What is a linking commentary? He explains. A linking commentary is a transitional passage that connects portions of a text. Oh, that makes sense. Good. These transitional passages introduce the rationale for the next section. However, they do not contain the meaning of the text itself. The linking commentary that introduces the above stanza is opponent. Put on your opponent hat. Thank you. Any cause of the thoroughly afflicted or completely purified must produce something with a substantial nature. Those are the thoroughly afflicted and completely purified, the way they categorize all things. It's either in the affliction class or the pure class, as we're moving towards enlightenment. That's all. That's another taxonomy. I'm using the $50 word there. Huh? But that's the classification. All right. The reply. Such a statement is left as mere words without explicitly any meaning. Why? This is because such a statement does not establish anything. It does not demonstrate that if this is the case, then that follows. If this is the case, that follows. Remember that. The transitional passage leads into Chandrakirti's response, given the stanza above. Whatever argument is used in the context of ultimate analysis, as he said before, his commentary explains the stanza as follows. Production by way of its own characteristics, or inherent production, you could say it that way, does not exist in terms of either of the two truths. It's not there at all. You are obliged to accept that even if you do not want to. And remember, inherent existence isn't even seen by the omniscient Buddhas, because it doesn't exist. Buddha, where's the inherent existence? It doesn't exist. Oh, thank you, Buddha. Really? Page 219, he continues, a third of the way down. Bhavaveka and all the Buddhist schools except the Prasangika. So Bhavaveka is Svatantrika, and then below that Yogacara, and then Sotantrika, and then Vaibhashika. So Prasangika is the top rung. It's 4 big rungs, but the top rung breaks into 2. Just to get you oriented. So you're not accident prone, never mind. Bhavaveka and all the Buddhist schools accept the Prasangika, as well as all non-Buddhist philosophical systems accept production that exists by way of its own characteristics. Only the Prasangika say there's no way on any level that there's inherent existence. Just stop. Everybody, stop. So when Bhavaveka says, Geshe Sopo goes on, things exist conventionally, he actually means things inherently exist even conventionally. Now there's a good one. Even though he denies that they ultimately exist. This guy should go into politics. He's very good at it. Hey, Bhavaveka, reincarnate in the Senate. Have we got some places for you? Not really. So he's saying, even though he denies that they ultimately exist, he says things inherently exist conventionally. He's saying that. Ugh. Even though he denies that they ultimately exist. Inherent existence is one of the most difficult philosophical issues. All the Prasangika's opponents say that if you reject inherent production, you totally negate the existence of anything. And they're wrong. Sorry, they're wrong. Therefore, they claim you cannot negate inherent production. Although Bhavaveka accepts inherently existent production, he negates ultimate production. Huh? This is a problem, yes. According to the Prasangikas, accepting inherently existent production is the same as accepting ultimate production. Good morning. If you accept inherent production or production that exists by way of its own characteristics, you must accept ultimate production. When you negate ultimate production, you must negate inherent production in the same way, even as conventionally existent. Therefore, because there is no difference between inherent existence and ultimate existence, they're synonyms in our Prasangika vocabulary. They're not in the other schools. So, remember that. Therefore, because there is no difference between inherent existence and ultimate existence from the Prasangika point of view, Bhavaveka is uttering meaningless words. Just as he negates ultimate production, he must negate inherently existent production conventionally, even though he does not want to do so. There's synonyms. You can't just use one word to shade things. Well, why is this occurring? Why are they doing that? That's deliberate. These schools gradually introduce the practitioner who's really getting into it to slowly, well, yeah, maybe conventionally there's some ultimate existence, and then finally they break that apart. No, there's no inherent existence anywhere. The mind has to be conditioned along the way to accept lesser of the realities, lesser of the truth, rather, the heavy ultimate truth, so that it's very calm, etc., and it can accept the highest level. So we can't knock the lower schools. I don't know what he's talking about, because they're presented by Buddha as a means to train people. So you don't knock them, because then you have the heavy sin of denigrating the Dharma. Oh my God. You have to spend hours watching daytime TV as a punishment. No. So to prove his point, let's get back to the bottom of page 219. To prove his point, Tsong-kha-pa quotes from the text of Buddha, Politan, and Chandrakirti many times to show that they not only negate ultimate production, which is common to all Madhyamikas, but they also negate inherent production. Same word, same thing. Over and over again, Tsong-kha-pa points out that production that exists by its own characteristics must be treated in the same way as ultimate production. So bear in mind now to yourselves, inherent by its own characteristics, ultimate synonyms. They all mean the same thing. All those things, synonyms. That'll help you when you breeze through these texts. Nobody breezes through them, but maybe if you're real sharp, you can. I'm sure Ling Rinpoche can snapshot the page and just discuss it. But the rest of us, normal beings on the path, just remember that they're synonyms from the Prasangika Madhyamika point of view, the consequentialist school point of view. Over and over again, Tsong-kha points out that production that exists by its own characters must be treated the same way as ultimate production. Chandrakirti makes the point very clearly in another passage from Introduction to the Middle Way, and we'll end on his quote at the top of page 220. A barren woman's son is not self-arisen, or he comes again, this poor guy, either conventionally or ultimately. He doesn't exist. Likewise, all things do not arise inherently, either ultimately or conventionally. Since there's no such as inherent existence, you can't shade it. It's not even there. You can't say, well, it's conventionally inherent. Bang. Okay, so I'm banging that point on and on and on, because it was a big problem to me for a long time. And every time Chungla would say, you get idea? Oh, yes, I get a... No, you don't get idea. So finally, I think I'm getting an idea. Thanks, Rinpoche. So we have 10 minutes to class time left. So again, recommend Geshe Sopa's commentary. There's a copy of it in the Tibet Center if you want to roll over there. This Saturday we're open for Tara practice, so if you can get over there Saturday, make use of our library. And again, I recommend Kenneth Lieberman. I'm reading more and more about him. He's in some YouTube videos too, but he's discussing, he studied yoga a lot with good Indian masters, so he knows Hinduism. He even mastered the Aboriginal language when he went on a field study in Australia for a couple of years. Interesting guy. I mean, to come out of Beverly Hills in a privileged environment and to get down in the dirt with Aborigines in Western Australia. Well, that's pretty good. And he's also lived many years in Sarah Monastery. I'm sure a lot of the Sarah people know him. So that's a good thing. For whom will we pray? Me and my big mouth. Gene Perkins. Steve Burn. Our mantra, I hope Lori is doing well. Good evening, Steve. Okay, that's it. So Gene Perkins and whoever else you wish to pray for who has passed away. Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Tathagata. Thus the Buddha Bhagavat, Tathagata Arahat Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans, is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to this Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. As a further cause for the quick return of Rato Chungran Rinpoche, it can't happen fast enough, His Holiness recommends that we recite this prayer, Praise for the Flourishing of J. Tsong-kha-pa's Teachings, on the website, of course. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When of yore in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog. His pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning. Reverent, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for beings in the doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanation of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayama, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious Gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverent holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the Kankot Losang's teachings flourish. 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings, who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. So our next class, Dharma class, will be Wednesday night, the 31st, last day in May, on to June. The year is rocketing by as always. 7 o'clock, we'll continue with the LAM chapter 15. We also have White Tara Saturday. We have White Tara in person at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon at the Parsonage in South Orange. Go to the Tibet Center website and it gives you instructions on how to get there. We start at 1 o'clock and there's a refreshment served, etc. and so forth. Anyway, thank you for your kind, patient listening to a very difficult chapter. Big love to all of you.